Betsy.
Betsy, time now. 19 minutes past 8. When the minimum wage was introduced 15 years ago, it was hoped it would help keep the lowest paid workers out of extreme poverty. But now the man who designed the policy says it's no longer enough.
So George Bain has written a report for the research organisation, the Resolution Foundation. It works to improve living standards for people on low incomes. He's now calling for a rethink, as Breakfast's Graham Satchell reports.
Michelle Spink is a single mum. She's worked all her adult life on just more than minimum wage, and she's struggling.
It's half term. I haven't been able to take my son out anywhere, and to most people that's well, sorry, but at least you've got a job. Yeah, but I need to be living, not just existing.
You don't feel as though you're living?
No, I'm not living, I'm existing. Living would be that I don't just go to work to pay my bills. I would go to work to have some money in my pocket, to take my son out for a day, to buy him a game. I mean, heavens. I had to get my mum to buy his Christmas present, and I'm having to pay her back in instalments because I couldn't afford anything for Christmas.
The minimum wage started in 1999 at £3.60 an hour. It hasn't kept up with inflation. Today it's £6.31 an hour, and campaigners say a living wage would be £7.65 an hour.
When the minimum wage was first introduced 15 years ago, it was seen as an effective way of lifting people out of poverty. But the author of today's report says now it has weaknesses and needs a rethink. Why? Because for many employers, the minimum wage has become the going rate. And the report argues that in effect, it is today trapping millions of people in low pay.
An estimated 20% of the workforce earns less than £7.50 an hour, and 3/4 of people on low pay in 2002 were still on low pay a decade later. Michelle says she feels stuck.
I can already see myself getting into debt, and I just think it's going to get a lot worse, and I dread it, absolutely dread it.
We made the elastic in a casing originally.
Yeah.
And
Libby Hart has run her small fashion business for 3 years. Her dresses are made in factories in London where 90% of the staff are on the minimum wage. Any substantial increase would have a big impact on her business.
If they put minimum wage up by £1, that increases our production costs by 21% per garment. We just can't afford to do that, and we'd have to, I don't think our consumer would accept an ultimate price rise, so we'd have to look at other ways of manufacturing, which would mean moving outside the UK.
The government has hinted the minimum wage may go up to around £7 an hour by next year, but today's report by the independent think tank the Resolution Foundation urges wholesale reform. For people like Michelle, it would mean, for example, a commitment to reduce the share of workers who are low paid, to set different rates for different parts of the country and different parts of the economy, and to give some hope that employers would pay more than the minimum requirement. Graham Satchell, BBC News.
Well, let's talk to the man now who devised the minimum wage policy back in 1999. That's Professor Sir George Bain in our Belfast studio. Thank you for your time this morning. If we look at those figures, first of all, is the current figure of £6.31 the correct figure here and now?
Well, it's the correct figure, Charlie, in the sense that if you're only going to set a single rate and you don't want to cause unemployment in areas like clothing, as that female employer was saying, it probably is the correct rate. I haven't done the sums, but I'm sure that my colleagues on the Commission have. That's the problem with it, that if you're going to set a single rate, let's keep the metaphor going of the clothing trade, the minimum wage is a very ill-fitting garment. It pinches in some places like clothing, but it's very flabby in other areas like finance and other sectors of the economy. And that's one reason why we think that there should perhaps be different rates for different sectors and perhaps different rates for different regions, London being a classic example.
And one of the issues that's being raised, I know in your report, but also by people getting in touch with us, Sue, for example, says those stuck on the minimum wage for 5 years in her case know that it doesn't make any sense. They call it survival wage. That's one of the dangers, that employers are using it basically as what they pay everyone sort of for a long period of time.
Yes, Charlie, that is absolutely right. When we were first considering it way back in 1997-8, The fear was by employers and others that there would be a ripple effect. That is, far from people being stuck on the minimum wage, if you raised it by 10%, the 10% would ripple all the way up the wage scale and cause inflation. Well, quite the reverse has happened, as you say, and some of the commentators say. It has become the going rate, and people, once on it, tend to stick there for quite some time, perhaps forever. And again, it's a reason why you want to have greater differentiation in terms of region, in terms of sector as well, and try and get it. I mean, the basic problem is that the 631 covers 5% of the labor force. Low pay is generally universally defined as 2/3 of the median, which is actually £7.71. And we have to get a way of helping those people who are on the minimum wage at 631 but below the rate of 771.
Well, without wanting to get too bogged down in the numbers, I mean, if people are saying that £7.65 an hour is a living wage, then what's the point of having a minimum wage if you can't live on it?
Well, the point is that it's a floor, and the minimum wage, of course, is not the only way of dealing with poverty. For a start, the minimum wage only helps those who are actually in employment. If you're not in employment, it doesn't help you at all. But of course, the total attack on poverty, on low pay, can't all be left at the door of the Low Pay Commission. In fact, it's one of the reasons why the report also argues that the Commission actually has to become a Low Pay Commission. At the moment, it's a National Minimum Wage Commission. It has to be given the opportunity to do wide-scale studies to actually advise the government on a strategy for eradicating low pay. The way it's construed at the moment, its main task is simply to set basically a single adult rate, some youth rates as well, and to then look back each year and say, has that actually caused unemployment? It's a very narrow brief, and we think the brief of the Low Pay Commission has to be widened out so that it becomes really a strategic body for advising government on how it could devise a multi-pronged, multi-faceted strategy for tackling the problem of low pay.
Okay, Professor Sir George Bain, thank you very much for your time this morning. Thank you.
Time now to get